And then Prabhupada, he did something I never saw anyone do before. It's like when he was dipping under, he closed all the holes in his head. He put, I won't be able to speak when I do this, so I just give him a demonstration, but he put 2 fingers over the mouth, 2 over the nostrils, 2 over the eyes, and the thumbs in the ears, like this. He took 3 dips, then he came out. And then one devotee got a little excited, wanted to put water on Prabhupada's back or something, but then he kind of looked, and then it was getting like too familiar. But it was very, I don't know what to say, it was very ecstatic to just suddenly have that kind of a spontaneous bath with Srila Prabhupada.
There was no way to get into the Mela because there were 20 million people there. There were no train reservations. You'd have to have your own helicopter. And there were no buses. It's like people were coming in, lying on top of trains and stacked against the walls of trains. And his doctor had said that he couldn't fly, and the devotees didn't want him to go, but he was determined. He was going to go to Kumbh Mela. Everybody told him not to, but at the last minute he made his own decisions. And so miraculously, there was one sweet Indian gentleman named Mr. Gupta who had just joined about 2 months prior. He just happened to be the chief engineer of Indian Railway. And so what he did was he added 2 cars to the trains. This is not done in India. I mean, totally unheard of. But he added a first-class car and he added a second-class car. And he, not only that, he arranged that Prabhupada's car was freshly painted and there were garlands hanging in it. And he arranged for his personal servant to go with him into the Mela, to drive with him. And we had just given our money, I was traveling with Kusha and her 3-year-old son, and we gave our money to Mr. Gupta. We didn't know, but we had a coupe right next to Prabhupada's. And then while we were on the train, it dawned on me, he told me he was going to take me to the Mela, and here we could, it was the coupe right next, his coupe with his sannyasis and brahmacharis he was traveling with, and then the next coupe. They're like little rooms in Indian trains, where we could hear him talking at the stops, and sometimes we would take grapes or take mangoes or things into it. And of course the train stopped outside the Mela, because the train station during Kumbh Mela is a nightmare. It's just like, they're usually a nightmare anyway, but they're more of a nightmare with thousands of people. And so we stopped outside Allahabad in the dark, and we got off the train, and Hansadutta's buses picked us up. And of course Prabhupada's car was there, and then we drove into the Mela in that way. And then while we were in the Mela, Prabhupada was wanting milk. There was no way to get milk. So I talked to Mr. Gupta, and Mr. Gupta arranged for a cow to be brought to our compound in the Mela so that Prabhupada could have fresh milk. Mr. Gupta was wonderful. He really arranged for everything. And then he arranged for a train to pick Prabhupada when he was ready to leave the Mela. From the Mela, he went to, I can't remember whether he went to Calcutta or Bombay. Anyway, he left the Mela. They picked him up outside this train station. In other words, they made a special stop for the train. 2 cars were put on the train from Bombay, all the way, empty cars all the way, to pick him up and then take him out of the Mela. I mean, this is just like, in India this would be considered a miracle, because, I mean, the roles of bureaucracy just to get a train ticket. If anybody's been to India, they know. But to have 2 whole cars put on just for him, and because there was no other way he could travel, he couldn't fly.
Well, sometimes he'd be sitting in his room in Calcutta, and then I remember one time he was explaining, one of the life members said, well, can you show us a miracle? And Prabhupada said, well, some yogis, they show a miracle of, they give some rasgulla or sweet or something. He said, I went to America with $40, with 40 rupees rather, and now we have temples all over the world in this short span which are worth more than 400 million rupees. So isn't that a miracle? They thought for a minute, and the businessmen were calculating, said, that's a miracle.
So we're walking along these big houses in Lakeshore Park, in Chicago, and this dog looked like it was half, horse. It was like Marmaduke's older brother. It was this enormous dog, like Aristasura coming to Vrindavan. The ground was shaking, and this huge dog came running down like this. And so, 3 or 4 devotees hid behind cars. A couple devotees hid behind Brahmananda. More or less, everyone just, was on. I don't mean this like it sounds, but more or less was overwhelmed by the temporary bodily concept of life and was of self-preservation. And Prabhupada was really left out sort of in front as the point man. Some people were there, but they were stunned. So everyone was didn't know what to do. And Srila Prabhupada, in his transcendental bravery, he stepped forward, threw his chadar over his shoulder. I was thinking like Krishna, ties his belt before he attacks, fights with the demon. Prabhupada threw his chadar over like that, took his cane and went, hut! And this huge dog just turned, went back like that. The devotees kind of dusted themselves. They were a little embarrassed. We kind of regrouped. And then a little further down the road, another dog came out. And so I forget one sannyasi, somebody tried, hut! And the dog just got madder. And Prabhupada laughed. Prabhupada said, you have to know the science.
We were walking on near the Jalangi River one day, and Prabhupada, one villager, he came with a big basket of vegetables on his head. So then Srila Prabhupada asked, so you're going to sell those in the market? He said, yes. Well, how much will you sell? You sell us the whole basket. And he had just been telling the devotees how I liked fresh vegetables from the garden, and we should offer our vegetables to the deity. And if you buy wholesale, how you can save money. And here a man came with a basket on his head. So then Prabhupada immediately set up a bargaining with him. And he started telling, look, if you go to the market, you'll spend the whole day sitting there with a basket. I'm buying it from you right now. You can go and do something else. You don't have to walk 2 miles to the market and sell your goods. So like this, he bargained him down to maybe 6 rupees for the basket. And then said, okay, you go to the temple, and here's a chit. Give him a note, and they'll pay you over there. So the man went off with a basket and went to the temple and sold those vegetables, and then that was what they cooked for the deities and Prabhupada that day.
In New Jersey, we were sitting in the garden one day, and there was a slug. That's an ugly thing. You know what a slug is? It's an ugly thing without, like a snail without a shell. And it was crawling there right next to him, and I said, ooh, look. I was a kid. And he said, he got this look of tremendous compassion on his face. And he said, chant to the poor creature. And so he had me sitting there chanting to this slug, And now I still chant to slugs, because I remember Prabhupada telling me to chant to the slug, and when I chant to slugs now, or little insects or whatever, I know that this is one of his instructions, that we're given this human form of life, and we can chant, and they can't, but the soul can hear. The tree can hear, the bird can hear, everything. And we would sit outdoors and he would talk like this. I can remember once he was talking about 2 butterflies that were flying together. And he's saying, just see, there's family life also in the butterflies, and we were on the beach in New Jersey, and there are little ants on the beach and stuff, And he was saying, they say there's no life on the moon, but here on the beach we see there's life. There's life in every part of God's creation. It's continuously seeing, constantly viewing the world through vision of Krishna Bhakti. There was never any time that he wasn't.
One time I remember one Maharaj was cooking up hot puris, and we were taking hot puris with date gur, with date molasses. And then Prabhupada was looking through the window and seeing everybody, the sannyasis and brahmacharis around getting hot puris, and then taking one after another with the date gur. Then he said, this is not very good for sannyasi life.